Guys, I have the distinct pleasure of having Debbie Millman stepping into the booth with us. I have to admit, this is impromptu for both of us. We have to take opportunity sometimes when it appears, and here we are. So Debbie Millman, she's done a lot of incredible things. She may be the longest running person who's done like a design podcast. It's Design Matters, and I just have some quick notes here, but really I just want to open it up and use whatever time I have with you and talk about whatever's hot on your mind. So I guess the first question I have for you is this, is that you speak, you write, you're a profound influencer. I have to ask you, when you have these conversations with people, what's the stuff that you think about at night? I want to just open it up there, like the themes that you're hearing that you need to speak about.
One of the things that I'm endlessly fascinated by is the arc of a life. How does a person become who they are? What are the choices that they make that lead them to the path that they are on? What are the things that they have to face? And I am really interested in how people create the arc of their life. How do you design the arc of who you are and who you become? What is the journey up the mountain that you take?
And what kinds of things have you been able to connect? Because that sounds pretty profound, this arc, and can we design the arc of our life? Are you speaking in a much broader sense to like humankind, or mostly about creative people?
I would say mostly creative
Okay.
people. I'm really interested in the psychological motivations of creative people. How do they have the courage to be creative? What gives them the sense that they can be creative? Where does that sense of creativity come from? How is it fostered? What struggles do creative people go through that might be unique to a creative mind? So I'm really interested in the way in which creative people live creatively and work creatively.
Do you find that there are certain common themes as to how somebody goes from being and then being creative? Is there something that's a common thread? Or
No.
an uncommon thread?
I would say I
No.
have not found that yet. I
Okay.
mean, I actually think that one of the threads very well may be a pervasive sense of insecurity.
Oh, wow.
And that creativity is a way to express thinking and ideas, and that creativity becomes a response to the insecurity. But I don't have any empirical evidence to suggest that. It's really anecdotal.
Okay. This is fascinating. So I've not thought of the word insecurity as it relates to creativity and how you express yourself. So if you don't mind, if I can invert the lens back on you for a little bit, is your creativity an expression of some form of insecurity for yourself?
Of course.
Well,
Without
can we
a
talk about
doubt.
that?
Without a
All right. It's going to get
not a
juicy, you guys. This is
surprise.
good. All right. Woo!
That's
This is
not
gonna
a
be good.
surprise.
Okay.
That's not a surprise.
right.
No, everything I do is fueled with trying to matter, with trying to have some purpose in my life, feeling like I am worthy of being alive, feeling like I'm worthy of being here at this moment. Yeah, I would say that everything in my life is motivated by that.
Do you know where that comes from?
Probably a horrific childhood.
All right. So traumatic childhood. Okay. And do you feel like having, I mean, it's pretty incredible. Matthew was just downloading me right before you showed up that you've written at least 6 books. You've been the president of the AIGA. You were the creative director of print. You've been the chief marketing officer for many, many years. Are you finally feeling that you are worthy? Have you hit that where you feel like you've got that sense of who
There
you
are
are?
moments, but they're
Moments.
fleeting.
Really? Well,
Why do you? Do you feel like just a sense of acceptance about your life and yourself and your path?
I do.
Really?
Yes.
So you were probably well parented.
I think I wasn't parented at all. And I want to explain this, okay?
Okay.
I've been thinking about this because my wife asks me these kinds of questions all the time because we, in some areas, could not be more polar opposites.
In
She's
what
like,
ways?
how do you walk around like feeling so confident, so sure of what it is that you do in life? And she's trying to reverse engineer how I was raised. So I'm a first generation immigrant from Vietnam. My parents worked like all the time just to try to provide a future
make a life
us.
for you, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they weren't exactly there on the weekdays. And we were like latchkey kids. I think that's the term
But
where.
they probably had very high expectations of what you could become as a result of their sacrifice.
Yes, and there was those expectations, but for the most part during the weekdays, we ran around like animals, total freedom. And I think today, if I would never allow my son to do the things that we were allowed to do. Like I was 11 years old walking down the creek by myself or with my friend
Yeah.
for hours, and they had no idea where we were. And we explored caves. We could have fallen, died, broken something, all these things, but none of that happened. So I think what my parents did, and they do have a certain philosophy, my dad especially, he's a very laissez-faire, hands-off kind of person where he would lecture me for hours to help me think about things. And it was pretty uncommon because usually you just get the belt from his culture, his generation, but he was uncommon in that way. But they just let us do stuff. And so I just was allowed to be whoever I wanted to be.
That's wonderful.
And I struggled with identity and insecurity for a long time. So that part, like looking for that, I relate to that.
But you've found
I've since then found that. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how did you do that?
I was explaining to everybody yesterday that I think I needed to find something to anchor my identity on. And when I found graphic design and I studied typography, for some reason, it's like the heavens parted, a ray of light hit me in the face. And it's like, you're pretty good at this, and you can do it rather effortlessly. So this is how we're going to build ourselves up. And that was the foundation of the house of my personality.
And so what made you decide that building something up was something worthy to pursue and something that you had a good chance of succeeding at?
Okay, so up until that point, I always felt like an outcast. Like I didn't have a tribe of any kind of person. Growing up in a predominantly Caucasian neighborhood, I got into physical fistfights with people and was ridiculed and racial slurs, the whole bit. So for all my life, and I think everybody from this insecure place is looking just to belong. Like I just need to belong to something, and I'll take the first real thing I can find. Right? So in the beginning, I tried to belong with a certain group of kids because I thought that they were cool. And I thought they were my friends, but in truth, they were not my friends. They're not looking out for me at all. And so it hurt. It hurt a lot because
How
it's
did you
like,
discover that?
you can tell because when times get tough, they're gone. They're just gone like
Fair
that.
weather friends.
Yeah, pretty much. They're
I call
gone,
those
or they,
geographical accidents.
and then they would, yes, and they would like play mean jokes on me. Like my friends would not do that. Right? So sometimes they exhibited behaviors of people who cared, and then sometimes they didn't. So I just felt like if you're not going to be consistent, then I need to put you in a box. We are acquaintances, friends, but we're really not there for each other. But once I found that thing that I could just feel like, gosh, maybe this is me. Maybe this is just my gift and this is what it is. And it doesn't matter if it's true or not. I'm going to believe it's true. And I started to build up from that. And I started to model myself after people that I thought had that thing I wanted. So I had a hard time talking to people in social interactions. And then I looked at a person who was more comfortable. I adopted their mannerisms, their walk, their talk, their speech, and everything.
Whose was it? Stefan Sagmeister's?
No. It was just, believe it or not, it was this guy named Barton Chin. He was an industrial designer at Art Center. And I was watching him, and he was short. His skin, like he had extremely dry skin. He wasn't particularly good looking or anything, but he had a way about himself. And he gave me the confidence to be somebody.
So was he a teacher?
No, he's a classmate, and he was dirt poor,
Interesting.
everything. So I think that was the perfect person for me because he had none of the advantages. If he was 6'2", athletic, Brad Pitt movie matinee looks, I can't be that guy. That guy's everything for him. But this guy was a guy who was comfortable in his own skin, and he taught me these things. And then my roommate also, like he's the most gentle guy. I was watching him. I was like, how are you so okay with being flawed and imperfect and even like lazy? And so he taught me it's okay to be me too. So I've had some very lucky serendipitous relationships with people that I could just learn from. And each time, like I tell people this, like I'm like the X-Men character Mimic. I steal stuff. So later today, I will probably be a little bit more Debbie Millman than I was 15 minutes ago. Really?
I'm sorry.
No. I'm privileged to, So I describe myself as a knowledge vampire where I don't do any harm to you, but I grow.
Yeah.
And I watch, and it's just I'm studying everything about you right now. I don't mean to creep you out, but I really am.
That's cool. So you're
Yeah.
an empath.
I don't know, but that's what I do. So yeah. So this surprises me a little bit, and I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate to this, that as accomplished as you are, I mean, we can't even barely get in time with you, so I'm just so privileged to have you here, is that you're still working through this, that you describe only having fleeting moments of purpose and clarity and feeling worthy.
Yep.
So,
But I think it's a journey.
Yes.
I just interviewed, believe it or not, I just interviewed David Lee Roth from Van Halen.
Wow, yes.
And we were talking about accomplishment and peaking and the journey, and he said, you don't want to reach the peak. And I was really surprised
Yeah.
to hear him say that. And I asked him why, and he said, because when you reach the peak, it's cold and chances are you're alone. And the only way forward is down.
Well, that's kind of very autobiographical of David Lee Roth,
Not
right?
necessarily. I mean, he's still doing really well.
Is he?
He has a new line of tattoo preservation lotions and things.
Yeah.
So it's called Ink, the original. So he's doing, like, we
Well, I
don't
don't
have
mean
to worry
like that.
about him.
Nobody's staying up late at night worrying about the careers of
Yeah.
rock stars, right? But
But
I'm
I
old
think it's
enough.
really interesting to consider when and how you peak. And I don't want to, like, I don't think Paula Scher has peaked. Paula is still doing some of the best work of her life.
Right.
And she's been working now continuously for 5 decades. So she hasn't peaked yet. She's still doing some of the best work of her life. You don't have to look at her and think, oh, she did the best work when she was in her 20s. She's still doing some of her best work.
Yeah.
And so I would like to think that all of my best work is still in front of me.
I agree with that. Now, I just noticed a little difference here. First, when you said you don't want to peak, and then later you used peaked, and this is the past tense, meaning your best days are behind you.
Right, I don't
So-
want that.
Right, so philosophically, I was thinking, if you don't ever want to peak, do you hold back? Do you not put
God,
yourself
no.
out there?
No.
Not you specifically,
No.
but for people who might hear this,
Oh,
like,
I see.
if
No,
you
I
reach the
just-
zenith, the top of your thing, I don't ever want to get there, so I prolong doing the things that I need to
Oh,
do.
yeah, no,
right?
no. I think that when people look at other people and think they've made it,
Yeah.
they have reached the peak. I think it's better to just keep working and keep making it than to strive for this moment where you've made it, because then that is, if you think, okay, that's my best work, that means you're never going to do your best work again. So I'd always like
Right.
to think that my best work is in front of me.
Okay, I love that. I love that. So maybe we're talking about the same things, because I look at it like I do want to reach the peak. But when I reach the peak, I realize I'm just at the base of another mountain.
Oh, that's nice
And
too.
from where you stand, because of the atmosphere, it looks like the peak, right? And then when you get there, you can see a little bit more. It's like, oh, there's another journey.
Yeah.
And so I'm okay to simultaneously feel I've accomplished a lot,
Yep.
but we're just on another journey.
I think this is the definition of optimism.
So I'm optimistic. Who would know? Not from our audience.
So I have to head
You have to
out,
go.
But I think that was
Okay.
a nice note to end
That
on,
was just
right?
amazing. Yes, thank you so
Okay.
much. I
Oh,
truly
my
appreciate it.
pleasure.
Thank you
My
very
pleasure.
much. Guys,
Sure.
Debbie Millman. Wow, that was a real treat for all of us.